Hi, I'm Ken Howard, and welcome to the Gay Therapy LA podcast. I just want to take a minute to please leave a rating and a review if you like the podcast, so that we can help spread the word. Ratings and reviews online help to give the podcast show some visibility, and I'm really trying to reach gay men who need supportive resources of all kinds all over the country and all over the world. So if you give some feedback and give a rating, or if you want to ask me questions, you're always welcome to do that. But that's important for visibility, because we really want to share this with other gay guys across the world who might benefit from some of these episodes. So if we all work together, we can help spread the word. Thanks for doing that. So now, today, I want to share 10 ways for gay men to handle interpersonal conflict. Sometimes things come up, and I hear about them often in my practice for therapy and coaching in LA or online across the country, across the world even. And it comes up a lot. It's come up a lot for me over my long life. So I want to share some thoughts about gay men in conflict with you today. In the sport of hockey, somehow it became acceptable, even preferred, for its players to not only skate around on ice and toss a puck around soccer style with sticks, but occasionally to break out in fights. You always know when one is about to happen. Somebody does or says something to piss another one off on the opposing team, and their thick gloves come off, ready to launch into the fight. And if you're a hockey fan, and I admit I'm really not, you know there's trouble when the gloves come off. We're in for it. Here it comes. No turning back. And then for a bit there's a fight, and the referees pretend to get mad about it like it's the first time they've seen it. And then the players have to go cool down, as if they weren't already in an ice arena, in a special place built for that on the rink, the penalty box, which is, of course, because fights are expected and subtly encouraged by the presence of the penalty box. It's part of the game. But they're only in there for a few minutes, and then they can go back out and play. It was not really a serious crime. It was just letting off steam, and I think a lot of it's theatrics. It's just part of the game, and it gives the spectators a show. It's exciting. It's expected. It's part of life. And real life, for all people, including gay men, is the same way. Conflict is a part of life. Human beings can be vicious little animals when we want to be, and it is a reality that at least some interpersonal conflict, personally or professionally, is going to be a part of our lives from time to time. And not just little ones, like who was in line first at the store checkout, or whose car got to the parking space first. It's hard ones, like legal disputes, such as being the victim of discrimination or harassment, crime, such as being the victim of gay bashing or robbery because gay men are assumed to be affluent, landlord-tenant issues. I've seen guys on both sides of that one. Homeowners associations in condos or neighborhoods, or some serious breach of interpersonal socio-cultural protocol among gay peers, which is also known as, oh no she didn't. And no, sorry, we can't all just get along. Not all the time, anyway. As human beings, we are hardwired to be scrappers, fighting for water, food, territory, mates, or social status. Whenever we perceive that there are scarce resources, there will be competition to get them. It's a zero-sum, it's me or them situation. Gay men are conditioned to fight against nearly constant undermining, challenging, and oppression for everything we have. We try for a win-win situation, but occasionally the battle is winner or loser, winner take all. Everyone needs their needs met. Many people want to get the goodies, the attention of the hottie, the recognition of the big boss, the job, the promotion we deserve, the contest prize, the winning bid on eBay, or the $100,000 on RuPaul's Drag Race. We're hardwired to be social beings. We want to get along, to make it through a day smoothly and pleasantly, to connect with someone who means the world to us, to have the goodwill of our neighbors, family, coworkers, colleagues, and the clerk at the grocery store. The hard part is when we need to use critical thinking skills to negotiate between conflicting survival instincts, between our lower instincts, such as anger, aggression, competition, dominance, fear, and jealousy, and our basic goodness, generosity, compassion, and go along to get along in a diverse society. Conflict is an unhappy given in life, but unfortunately we have big brains as Homo sapiens and loving hearts to work on it. Our ego exists to continually negotiate between our angelic superego, who wants to make peace, and our primitive id, who wants to knock their block off. Whether the conflict is intimate or work-related, ongoing, or a sudden conflagration with a stranger, there are many approaches that can ensure everyone involved leaves the field of battle whole and relatively satisfied. And it would be wrong to focus on being a victim in conflicts just because we're gay men, although we often are, from both men and surprisingly frequently from women. However, it would also be inaccurate and invalidate the experiences of our gay activist brethren and our forebears if we didn't acknowledge how gay men can be the victim of other people's discrimination, self-indulgence, aggression, greed, narcissism, and emotional and physical violence from both male and female perpetrators. We are a minority group, and like many minority groups, people sometimes act out because they don't like us in a homophobic, heterosexist kind of way, or in a more selfish, individualistic way, one that anyone could be a victim of, not just gay men. Sometimes there is conflict just because we don't allow a jerk, male or female, to push everyone else around, whether it's toward us or the people we care about. So in conflict, we don't want to eliminate anger. I mean, after all, anger is a normal human emotion, and our anger, individually and collectively in the gay community, is our defense against abuse, exploitation, or injustice. Rather, we want to manage our anger. We want to harness it, direct it, and make it work for us. We want to use it to fuel our quest for social or criminal or civil justice. We want to state our case because we believe in values like fairness, equality, compassion, and peaceful coexistence. So there are many ways that conflict can manifest, but I'd like to share about 10 ways that conflict can be mitigated in many or most circumstances. And here's what they are. Number one, calm it down. Calm it down. This means calm yourself down. Shut up for a minute. Step back. Look away. Take a deep breath. Sigh. Consciously relax any tension in your muscles. Announce what you're doing. I think we both need a moment to cool off. Let's take 5 minutes and come back to this in a while. If the other person is being a jerk, and you aren't, of course, you aren't, this technique reflects their own out-of-control behavior without escalating it by pointing out that he or she is the villain. So that's calm it down. Number two is listen. Invite the other person to present their point of view. You don't have to agree with it, but you're just hearing them out. And don't interrupt, but listen to what they're saying, the words they're saying, the points they're making, the feelings behind what they're saying, the values they're saying behind that, even if the value is a core belief of their narcissism that they are superior to you and they are trying to oppress you. But listen for that. And then what they say, repeat it back to them and let them know they were heard and that you want to understand the point they are trying to make, however idiotic. Even if you disagree, you reflect what I hear you saying is blah, blah, blah. So that's listen. Number three is speak your piece. Make the best case you can for your point of view. State who benefits and what good things get created or preserved by doing things your way. Keep your voice low, both in volume and in pitch. And if the other person doesn't have the self-control to listen courteously, stop talking. Eventually, they will run out of steam and begin to feel foolish. Remind them that it's your turn to speak your mind and continue. But this one, I think, is important. Recently, I had a couple of conflicts, and the person I was dealing with would not listen to what I was trying to say. And that's a problem, because if you're trying to negotiate something and they just won't listen, even if you're speaking in, reasonable tones, you're not cussing them out nearly as much as you would like to. If they won't listen, then you have to escalate it. And that happened with me recently. So I put that in there, number 3, speak your piece. But you either speak your piece to the person that you're dealing with, or you speak your piece to a higher level of party that can help you out. Sometimes you have to escalate who you speak your piece to. Number 4 is avoid personal attacks. Be sure it's the problem you're both attacking and not just each other. If they attack you personally, don't take the bait. Refocus on the problem at hand, not necessarily about them or their character. Oh, you're just a such and so. Focus on the situation. Remember, all the advice you probably have been getting about using I statements, I feel, I think. It actually does work. And focus on what you think and feel and why the other person's behavior, not the other person's person, is the problem. Admit it. If you have a role in escalating the conflict, apologize for the parts of the conflict that are really your responsibility or even your fault. If you called someone a name, backtrack on that and apologize for that and own that, and then restate the real values of your case, because that's what's important anyway. Number 5, be sure this is a fight worth having. This doesn't mean rolling over and playing dead when conflict arises. It's just that some disagreements are pissing matches about who is conceptually right with no real outcomes difference. We see this online all the time. Nobody is going to win an argument in a Facebook comment thread. It doesn't work. It's not the nature of the game. So check in with yourself when you're in these situations. Is all of this really important to you? Can you call a truce and let this go? If you can, then smile, shrug, walk away, and get back to something that is actually important to you. Think about how that time that you're spending with this idiot and arguing, think of how that time as a resource could be reallocated to something that fits your values and priorities and goals for the day. Number 6 is, if the fight is ongoing or pending, then plan a strategy. Do you have allies who can help you? Certain types of conflicts need to be escalated, such as enlisting the help of an attorney or your boss or a division chief, the police, a board of directors, a union rep, a mediator, a government agency, a teacher or principal or dean, or an advocacy group like the ACLU or the National Center for Lesbian Rights, or a trade union or a professional association. Think about the steps involved in working toward resolution. Focus on the ultimate outcome that you want. That's a legal thing. What is the relief that you want in the legal sense? I want money. I want my job back. I want better working conditions. I want credit where credit's due. Something. You have to really have some kind of solution that you are asking for and advocating for. Think about when is the best time and place to discuss the conflict and work through it. You don't want to be interrupted when you're having these discussions. You want time to really talk it out with whoever is involved or whoever is ancillary to your case. Think about what is negotiable on your end and what do you need to hang tough on. What is your opponent likely to insist on? Think about that. The more thought you give to your position, the likelier you are to keep cool and be persuasive. And keep your eye on the prize. What is the ultimate outcome you are trying to achieve by having this fight or this argument? Think about a court case. How is it ultimately resolved? Innocent, guilty, some kind of award to the plaintiff by a jury or by a judge. Think of Judge Judy. She always awards for either the plaintiff or the defendant, even if she beats them both up in the process. So number 7 is ask your opponent for help in finding common ground. Many disputes that are legal reach settlement before they ever get to the courtroom. And because of all the cases they have, judges will insist that the two opposing counsel or the two parties in a small claims action, for example, they work very hard to reach a settlement. And a lot of settlements are made before they even go into the first day of court. These 11th-hour settlements. So there must be some compromise solution both of you can live with. It may not give you the satisfaction of a clear win, but it'll preserve the relationship and maybe turn an opponent into a friend because you've worked through something. I had that not too long ago where somebody that I originally had a conflict with in an office building over things like, the temperature of the building, is now a friend because we worked through it and we actually found that we liked each other more than we had a conflict. And it doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes it does when you're working with pretty reasonable people. If you're not working with reasonable people, and I've worked with some real doozies, people who are very disturbed, people who are criminals, people who are personality disordered, people who are sadistic. You live in a big city like me in LA, you're going to run into some truly insane people sometimes, up to and including violent criminals. There's not a lot of common ground with that. In a case like that, you really have to use the power of law behind you to contain someone's negative behavior toward you. But there's a step in there, to work with your opponent to try to find common ground, no matter what at first. Number 8 is bring in a third party. If you're both running hot and irrational and you can't reach a conclusion on your own with each other, see if you can agree on a neutral third party to give you feedback and keep things calm. The ultimate arbiters, like I said, are often the law, the police and law enforcement, but it could be a policy in a corporation. It could be ethics or values of a professional association or some kind of board of directors like a hospital setting or something like that. Formal arbitration, with professional mediators or some kind of tribunal like they have in the military, or the courts, of course, are the ultimate ones. They're the neutral bodies that help parties resolve conflicts. Although even that's a flawed process because, as we've seen in partisan politics, the courts are not always neutral. Sometimes they have a definite political angle that they're trying to express according to who appointed them as judges, the Supreme Court or the federal courts. So the courts doesn't always work, but a lot of times if you can find a truly neutral third party, which I think are rare, that can be an enormous help. Sometimes the third party is a therapist, in conjoint therapy and couples therapy. Couples or conjoint therapy can be for romantic couples, but it can even be for roommates or two friends or two work colleagues. Therapists are sometimes in the position of being mediators, but with a clinical angle about anger management or anxiety or irritability or fear or trauma. So sometimes conjoint therapy can be about two parties in conflict, and it's something to keep in mind as a resource. Number 9, if the other person is drunk or unstable, just get away. When I work with gay couples, I hear how their worst fights happen when one or both of them are drunk. But if you're in public and your opponent is drunk or high or under some kind of drug influence, even a prescription drug, there's no sense to be found there. The conflict is likely to escalate to a dangerous level because they're not in control of their faculties. So if no physical harm is done, then emotional harm is likely. And the same thing is true if they are unstable due to a mental illness. If someone's, psychotic on the street, like a violent homeless person. Most homeless people are not violent, but where I live in West Hollywood in LA, there have been instances, if you're dealing with somebody who is not well mentally due to psychosis or inebriation or even a personality disorder, someone who's acting out in a rage because they have the borderline or the narcissistic or even the antisocial personality disorder, and that's another whole topic we will discuss about personality disorders in the workplace, so stay tuned for future episodes. The person might be having a panic attack or a dissociative rage. If those kinds of clinical situations are going on, it's not about working through the conflict. It's about retreating and getting to safety. And that's something to keep in mind. Is this person well enough, psychologically or psychiatrically or physically, to engage in a conversation? Number 10 is just kind of let it go. We have to use this one carefully, but there are times when You bring out your inner Elsa, from Frozen, and everything is a show tune with me. But it's okay to end some conflicts without either party ever being proven right. Think about the wars in Vietnam or Iraq or Afghanistan, hung juries, certain kinds of legal settlements, Ginger versus Marianne or Samantha versus Jeannie. We're never going to resolve these, even though, despite Barbara Eden being lovely, I think Samantha wins, hands down. I met Elizabeth Montgomery twice at fundraisers for AIDS Project Los Angeles, and she was amazing. But, that's another story. There are just some things that we're not going to resolve. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. So in my practice, I've worked with gay male clients where their situations were not so easy. They were victims of domestic abuse, violent crime, sexual harassment, and certainly workplace bullying, which I've experienced myself and I have a special interest in. I'm going to be writing more about that. In these types of cases, the resolution and working for justice against the crimes and their perpetrators is more drawn out. And sometimes it's the role of therapy or coaching to help you get through a long and often arduous process, especially a legal battle. And I've helped guys with that, such as how to take care of yourself during a protracted legal battle that goes on for months and months, for instance. Sometimes there is just no alternative to having a hard fight, because to not fight back would mean gay men are victimized yet again, and we have to individually and collectively put our foot down and say, as they say, time's up. If you're a drag queen at Stonewall and the cops are busting you up for no good reason, honey, throw that beer bottle as hard as you can. So if you follow all these tips for resolving conflicts, or at least mitigating their severity, you'll get to that lovely stage of just putting it all behind you sooner. And then you just say, bye, Felicia. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.